Well, in our top story, Oscar Pistorius will be released from the Kgosi Mampuru Prison under correctional supervision on October 20th. The parole board met this morning after asking Reeva Steenkamp's family to put further submissions before reaching its decision. Well, Pistorius was found guilty of culpable homicide last year after shooting and killing his girlfriend, Reeva Steenkamp. On Friday, the board consulted with Reeva's family about Oscar's possible release. The lawyer for the Steenkamp family, Tanya Kun, says the family did not make any new representations as they still feel 10 months behind bars for killing a person is simply not sufficient. Well, next week, Pistorius will have spent a year behind bars already. Kun says the Steenkamps also feel this is not long enough. Well, our reporter, that's Criselda Lewis, she's been tracking the trial, this case for us from the very outset, and she joins us now on the News Today desk. Good afternoon, Criselda. Welcome to News Today.
Thank you very much, Kgosi.
Well, this has been a tedious 2-month-long battle. Has the release date for Oscar Pistorius been confirmed by Correctional Services now?
Well, certainly, Kgosi, we just received a statement from the Department of Correctional Services. They do confirm that Oscar Pistorius will be released under correctional supervision from the Kgosi Mampuru Prison on October the 20th. And as you rightly pointed out, the next day, the Wednesday, would have been 1 year that Oscar Pistorius had been behind bars for shooting and killing Reeva Steenkamp. So certainly what the Department of Correctional Services is saying at this point is that the parole board had taken into account all the submissions that were made, including the submission that was made by Reeva Steenkamp's family. As you rightfully point out, is that last week when the parole board did sit after receiving quite a scathing letter, we understand, from Oscar Pistorius's lawyers, who were quite upset over what some would have had termed a delay. That sitting then postponed to today, and today finally the parole board saying, after considering all that was brought to them, that Oscar Pistorius should be placed under correctional supervision next week, Tuesday.
The eyes of the globe still very much on this case. Elaborate for us, Criselda, on the conditions around Oscar Pistorius' release. Will there be house arrest? Will he be allowed to train? He's always pushed for that, we understand.
We're still waiting for more information on exactly what these conditions are. Certainly the statement that we received from the Department of Correctional Services doesn't really go into too much detail. But what we do understand is that Oscar Pistorius will have restrictions when it comes to the use or even to be in possession of a firearm. And certainly one of the other things would be perhaps that Oscar Pistorius would need to be in the house at certain times, because all of this does mean that Oscar Pistorius will be placed under house arrest. We know that he will go to the home of his uncle Arnold Pistorius, which is in Waterkloof in Pretoria. That's where he will serve this. But certainly, you know, quite perhaps some would say it might even seem like this might be a short victory for Oscar Pistorius. While he may not be in the confines of a prison, this is only from counting from next week, when he would have spent 1 year in jail. Oscar Pistorius will then 2 weeks later have to listen to another grueling process where we see the state going to the Supreme Court of Appeal, where they'll be challenging this conviction, the culpable homicide conviction, the state maintaining that Oscar Pistorius should have been found guilty of murder in the shooting and killing of Reeva Steenkamp.
Has there been any reaction from the Steenkamp family thus far in light of the news now? They have often voiced their dissatisfaction with the short number of months, just a year behind bars that Oscar has been incarcerated for.
Oh, certainly. We spoke to the lawyer. She speaks, of course, on behalf of the family. And essentially what she is saying is that the response remains the same, that Reeva Steenkamp is not going to come back, that while Oscar Pistorius has been forgiven by the family for killing Reeva Steenkamp, they believe that 10 months in jail certainly is not enough. And we saw a lot of that, a lot of consistency in their response to this entire saga, in that when the Department of Correctional Services had asked for further submissions, they said they were not going to make further submissions. They still stick to the very statement that they'd made initially, saying that certainly more time, Oscar Pistorius should do the time, and that 10 months is simply not sufficient for the life of their daughter. So, you know, a disappointment, we can say for sure, on the part of the Steenkamps, in that the period that Oscar Pistorius would have spent in jail, a few days less of course, then a year certainly isn't sufficient according to them. So their response is quite expected, that of disappointment.
Thank you, Criselda. That's our reporter, Criselda Lewis. Of course, she's been following the Oscar Pistorius case very closely from the outside.